with the growth of new churches, there is also a growing number of many Catholics who describe themselves as católico a mi manera, or católico por cuenta propia, that is, Catholic in my own way, or Catholic on my own account. This self-description suggests, and a close look at religiously linked social movements affirms, at least to me, that the ties that bind believers to the institutional church are much looser and less subject to top-down control than many church leaders like to believe. This has consequences for the role that church leaders want to play in politics. If they want to reconquer social space, they depend on these groups. These groups just don't react anymore the way they used to. The old model of Catholic action movements in which everything that happened was closely advised by a clerical advisor, that's just kaput. Just doesn't have, the organizations still exist. You can find them in the telephone book, but they're completely empty shells in my own experience. Not everyone agrees with me, but that's my view. These groups are not sheep to be led. They're not chess players to be moved around on a board. Loyalties have to be secured and maintained differently in a pluralist, open, literate, urban, and media-soaked society. To get a sense of the changes at issue here, I just will briefly contrast the public face of religion 50 years ago. I'll just sit up straight. That's what my mother always said, with the public face of religion now. And I'll give you an anecdotal example. 50 years ago, the Catholic Church was still a viable monopoly, right? Pretty secure in its monopoly, although like a lot of lazy monopolists, not very active in maintaining it. And there were scattered groups already beginning to push for change, and this is the audience that later comes up to be the audience from Vatican II and from Medellin in Latin America. This position of the Catholic Church was driven home to me when I first went to Latin America, which is now 44 years ago. I'm really old. I love the movies, right? And I go to the movies wherever I am. And I remember I went to the movies in Venezuela in the late 60s and in Colombia in the early 70s, and I used to like the newsreels. They still had newsreels. You have to be old to remember newsreels. Newsreels are brief clips of news that precede the feature. And a regular part of all these newsreels would be some kind of public opening. A highway, a public building, an athletic event, or a business, a bakery, a store. In each case, you would see unfailingly a politician, a military officer, and a cleric together. The level of them would depend on the project, right? There'd probably be a bishop for a bridge, right, or a general. The politician would make a speech. The cleric would pronounce a blessing. The military officer wouldn't say anything. They would just offer silent affirmation of a guarantee of order. A perfect symbolic representation of civil religious fusion to me. They don't have newsreels anymore. At least I haven't seen one in years. But that whole world is also a distant memory now. The public face of religion is quite another matter now. This is partly the public face of religion now. You can scarcely cross, as I said, a public square, exit a bus or a train station without encountering a street preacher. I've encountered them almost everywhere I've gone. With a Bible, a loudspeaker, something to stand in. They're terrific preachers. They're a lot of fun to listen to. They're not just scattered. They come from a network. Many churches have a regular outreach to certain squares and certain plazas. Religion is also present in media in new ways. All this in the context of an ongoing competition. And one final sort of anecdote, music. I'm also on a dissertation committee at Michigan of a guy who is studying evangelical salsa music. There is, you know, a Christian rock industry in this country. It's pretty awful stuff, but if you like rock. But it's there, it has a big audience. Well, evangelical salsa music turns out to be very interesting. It's mostly done by musicians who have had a personal conversion. They found Jesus and they left behind drugs or personal problems of some sort. And what's interesting about them is that they do a few things. They change the lyrics of the music away from sexual abuse, which a lot of it was, to love and to finding truth in God. And they take the music and the message to the bars, to nightclubs, to stadiums, to the beaches. They make religion present in ways and in places that it wasn't really present before.